Welcome to another Explainer. I am so incredibly pumped about today's topic because we're looking at one of the most fascinating character dynamics in all of sports fiction. We're breaking down the legendary, intense relationship between Shakes Mokoena and Skarra from Supa Strikas. Now, on the surface, this just looks like your standard sports rivalry, right? Two incredibly talented players clashing on the pitch. But as we dig into the source material today, we're going to see that this relationship is actually built on a deeply complex foundation of shared history, massive egos, and honestly, unexpected humanity.
So let's jump right in by posing a pretty dramatic question, one that really sits at the heart of our explainer today. What actually happens when your greatest enemy suddenly becomes your only lifeline? I mean, it's easy to be a fierce rival when the absolute worst possible outcome is just losing a football match. But what happens when the stakes escalate from a trophy to literal life or death? Does that hatred hold up, or does something else completely take over? Keep that question in the back of your mind as we go through this, because the answer reveals everything you need to know about these two.
Section 1. Fierce Rivals, Shared Past. The origins of a complex dynamic. You see, their relationship doesn't just start with two guys who inherently hate each other. Shakes and Skarra actually grew up playing football together. They were childhood best friends. They learned the entire game side by side. But eventually, they end up on opposing teams, and that childhood bond completely shatters. It gets replaced by this fierce, bitter rivalry. But here's where it gets interesting. When the environment shifts from the safety of a stadium to a genuinely life-threatening situation, they suddenly revert right back to being life-saving allies. Their dynamic isn't a straight line at all. It's more like a pendulum swinging back and forth, depending entirely on the environment.
So, the absolutely crucial takeaway here is this. Their rivalry is intensely personal and highly competitive, but it has strict boundaries. On the pitch, Skarra is notorious. He's arrogant, he breaks the rules, he actively tries to sabotage Shakes during matches. To him, the football pitch is a literal war zone where anything goes. But, and this is a massive but, when real-world danger enters the chat, those on-pitch rules just vanish. The source material makes it crystal clear that this rivalry has a hard limit.
Section 2. Saved from the Sea. A rivalry put on hold.
Picture this incredibly intense scenario. Shakes Mokoena is in the sea, and he is actively drowning. This isn't a sprained ankle or getting a red card. This is an immediate, terrifying danger of death. Skarra is right there, and he's faced with a split-second choice. Now, he could easily just do nothing, right? He could let nature take its course, and his biggest professional obstacle would be permanently removed. But he doesn't. Skarra actively chooses to intervene and save Shakes' life. And this moment brilliantly illustrates the duality of Skarra's character. On one side, we have the rival, the guy wrapped in total arrogance, the one who relies on cheating and sabotage. But right beneath that toxic persona, we find the humanity. In that terrifying moment in the water, the old friendship completely overrides the modern-day hatred. He actually cares enough to step up and save a life.
But let's not pretend Skarra has suddenly turned into a total saint here. Let's look at this exact quote derived from our source material. Skarra wants to beat Shakes fairly on the football field, not by letting him die in an accident. This is such a fantastic insight. It tells us that Skarra's rescue operation is driven just as much by his massive competitive ego as it is by his conscience. He wants the satisfaction of defeating Shakes himself, of proving he's the better player. If Shakes dies in some tragic accident, Skarra never gets that victory. He saves his rival literally so he can defeat him later. It's kinda twisted, sure, but it makes perfect logical sense for who he is.
Section 3. Stranded in the jungle. Forced cooperation and food for thought.
This setup for this next scenario is almost comical. Well, before it becomes terrifying anyway. First, the two of them are acting like total kids. They get into this petty food fight, and they're punished for it. But that punishment goes completely off the rails when they end up stranded together in a seriously dangerous tropical jungle. Suddenly, they're facing real, unpredictable threats, which means they are absolutely forced to work as a team. That pettiness of a food fight, it completely evaporates the second actual survival is on the line.
The reality of their jungle situation basically boils down to a single, undeniable fact. Neither can get out alone. It's just a matter of pure necessity. If they continue to bicker and fight like they always do on the football pitch, they simply will not survive the jungle. They have to hit a complete pause on their rivalry and actually help each other out.
Section 4. The limits of rivalry. Deconstructing the frenemy trope.
A really clear pattern starts to emerge when we compare these two events side by side. In the sea, the danger is drowning, and Skarra makes the active choice to save a life. Out in the jungle, faced with serious tropical threats, he chooses teamwork, and they both survive.
In both of these completely separate life-or-death scenarios, the outcome is exactly the same. The competition is totally abandoned for the sake of human life. This pattern proves that their rivalry is a luxury. It's something they only indulge in when they are actually safe.
When real danger hits, Skarra's incredibly complex motivations can essentially be split right down the middle. 50% of it is his humanity, preserving that lingering childhood bond and just not wanting to see another human being die. But the other 50%? That is pure, unfiltered athletic ego. He is ensuring a fair future match. He absolutely needs Shakes alive so he can beat him on the pitch where everyone can see it. It is this perfect, crazy balance of conscience and competitive obsession.
Which leaves us with this final, profound thought to close out our explainer today. Can a true rivalry even exist without a hidden foundation of mutual respect? Shakes and Skarra really show us that the greatest, most intense rivalries aren't built on pure hatred. They're built on a shared history, an unshakable acknowledgement of the other person's worth, and a mutual understanding that some things are just infinitely more important than the game. It kind of makes you look at every sports rivalry a little differently, doesn't it? Thank you so much for joining me to unpack this amazing dynamic, and I highly encourage you to keep questioning the layers behind your favorite characters.